What's the occupancy for your facility, Craig, like for an ice surface?
For the ice surface itself,
Yeah,
well, we usually don't get over probably 2 teams competing. That's fairly standard. But if we were to max it out, we'd probably say probably 200 on our Olympic sheet. We wouldn't let more than that.
I was curious. I was a long time ago, I was working in South Africa and there was 400 people on the ice surface. It was like packed sardines and they're skating around. So anyways, but
Yeah.
I just didn't know what the rules. I knew there was different rules in South Africa, but I was curious how different they were than BC. So yeah.
Now our busiest one we've had is our Santa skate, and
Okay,
yeah, we probably easily had 200 there.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, 400 is a different level.
Was the only cool place in the casino where the ice rink was built. I think that was the big draw. So they go there, cool down. Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
My cousin lives in Perth, and he says the same thing. They have public skate at one arena for 5 hours or 8 hours a day because it's the only cool place in town, sort of thing. So yeah.
Who do we see here? Town of Bow Island. Welcome. Oh, there's Jillian. Are you in Red Deer this week, Jillian?
I was at Sunchild yesterday, Red Deer the rest of the week.
Oh, nice. How's that
Yeah.
outdoor surface been?
After our third attempt of getting the ice sheet in, it's doing wonderful.
Is it refrigerated?
It is, but the plant kept going down.
Oh,
It needs a new plant this year, so
boy, do I have the guy for you.
uh-huh.
Yeah, we'll talk about grants at the end of it too to help you pay for it. So yeah, there's always
Yeah.
Even better.
there's always a combination
We'll
of the
tell you
two.
who
It
to buy
costs
it
a lot
from
of money.
and how to pay for it.
Yeah, yeah.
Kind of need
Hey,
that
Jeff.
at this point. They also need a new machine, so
Have you made a decision on what you might purchase?
for a machine.
Yeah.
We're kind of limited because of how the post for the outdoor covering goes. So right now they've got a 400, so we'll probably have to stay in the 400 series of Zamboni.
Mhm.
Olympia is just too big. It won't fit onto the ice surface.
Ah. What else do we have here?
Good morning, Thomas. I see you got my email about coming out, and that's great to see you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Mike S., where are you from? Maybe he can't hear me.
Hey, Mike, looks like you're muted. Try that unmute button one more time.
Okay.
There you go.
Rocky Mountain House, Alberta.
Ah,
Well, everybody, I think maybe we can roll on with this. The first little bit's talking about current situation, so people will drop in as they come online, I guess. So welcome everyone. This morning here, we've got a nice little slate of topics. We're going to explore the intersection of technology and efficiency. And along with that, you have myself. I'm kind of hosting and talking. Adrian Thibault of the Scott Seaman Sports Rink, the facility coordinator there. and I'm the Alberta Arena Stream Rep for RFP. And just you might see Craig right below me. I don't know where you see him. Thanks for waving, Craig. He's at the Strathmore Arena. He's the arena manager at Strathmore, and he's also an RFP arena instructor, and he's the president-elect. So we'll be seeing his name a few times here for the next few years. And then we also have from Guest Automation, president of Guest Automation is Brody Guest, and their company is based in High River, and they have facilities from east to west, all the way to south. Dallas, Texas, right, Brody? Nova Scotia, everything like that. So they know a lot about automation. They automate the Scott Seaman Sports Rink and Strathmore facilities also. And then also we have Ian Well, which is the CEO of Polar Engineering. We've heard that name a few times. He's a big time supporter of RFP, being at conference, and they have offices in Alberta and BC. They handle engineering from a range of places, and they handle refrigeration plants, heat recovery systems, and he'll kind of talk more about that as we go through the process here. So I just want to welcome those people that just came in here a couple minutes ago. Welcome to our little presentation about automation, efficiency, heat recovery, all sorts of things. It's kind of a go ahead and ask questions as we go along, because it's sort of an open discussion between four of us and everyone else if you have questions. So definitely raise your hand or type them into the chat box, and Craig will be looking at the chat box, and we'll go through it from there. So I think everyone here has a little bit of automation as far as the refrigeration plant goes, because you are probably running off thermostats to turn on, turn off based on rink slab temperature. You might have some systems as far as going from leg compressor to lead compressor, that sort of business. And also if you have a warm slab, you have automation there, and that turns on at whatever temperature you have it set for. And then everyone, I think, has thermostats as far as your HVAC units and things like that, running your building, whether it's boilers or your natural gas HVAC units. But, you know, the future really kind of comes together when we can bring all that stuff together, and we can start to find some efficiencies with automation, or with heat recovery, or with tying a lot of things together, and getting everything to work better is a little bit more efficient from here and there. So anyone have anything to add about the current kind of situations that they have?
Well, I think it's good to give a good basis of where we're starting from. I know a lot of us in rinks who have been here for a while, you know, in the last 10 or 20 years, rinks have changed. I think Ian said this a few days ago when I was talking with him, that rinks have changed more in the last 10 or 20 years than they have in the last 100 years. So
Yeah.
the amount of technology that we're seeing coming to the forefront of our industry alone is staggering. You know, there's different things happening every day, and it can be overwhelming too. Especially as a manager for myself, you know, you're always trying to stay up to date with stuff, but you find, oh, that's outdated now, and you know, there's new technology all the ways around the corner. So we really wanted to gather different industry experts and stuff, and see where we're at, what are the things that are out there, what's available, and how can we harness some of it in our own facilities. You know, so that's a good starting place.
Yeah, and I
Absolutely.
think, yeah, and great start. And you know, from our experience, everybody, and good morning, everybody, is, you know, you said it, gents, is that, you know, typically the plant, you know, in the building is, yes, thermostatically controlled, but you know, at minimum in the plant, you know, they're just temperature controllers or temperature thermostats, obviously, but what it means is, you know, there's no schedule, there's no setback. Sure, there's, you know, you can control your dead bands, but that's obviously you physically walking into the plant and changing those dead bands, right? And as we all know, it typically just runs. And like Jillian said, if it doesn't run, you definitely know about it. So, you know, that's our take. And I know there's a different, you know, there's rinks from all over in this presentation, but you know, I think, and not to paint everyone with the same brush, but that's typically what we see, right? And then on the HVAC side, you know, and for the rest of the building, you know, we hope there's smart stats there. So again, you can schedule, you can set back, but you know, typically what we see is, you know, non-programmable thermostats, right? So again, it's just set to 21C or it's set to 68F and it just runs. So that's on weekends, that's at Christmas, that's on holidays. It doesn't, weekday, weekend, it doesn't matter. So that's our, you know, typical, not painting everyone with the same brush, but that's our typical findings that what we see across Canada and the US. So, you know, the whole point of this discussion is, you know, here's the current status, but, you know, in future slides, we're going to talk about, you know, next steps and how to bring that from, you know, an older control system or an older automation system up to being, you know, efficient and energy saving.
Yeah, Brody, I think to add to what you said there, that's exactly what we see a lot of too. I always get the question of, though, Ian, this stuff costs a lot, so why would I spend money on it? I'm happy with how my room is. I don't get any complaints. I heard my friend down the road installed an automated system, and now he's having to deal with it. It's little hiccups along the way. And I think the big thing that we find is better controllability, so you can update your set points based on user groups. So say if you want ice at different conditions and different temperatures for figure skaters and hockey players, or energy savings. A big thing that Brody and I both do is talk about how can we save you tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in energy consumption every year. And it isn't that one system is going to save you that amount of money, but when you add that with this air handler, with that ammonia refrigeration plant, when you add all that stuff together, it can add up to real cost savings. And I found that's often the biggest constraint is that a lot of ice arenas, when we look on the municipality level, they're struggling with growing costs. And those growing costs are coming from everywhere. And they say they're not shrinking everywhere. But this is a way that we can actually work together to make your costs shrink, which is your energy costs. So both for natural gas and electricity, there is ways that we can cost effectively install things to actually reduce your budget for the following year versus increase it. And so we find when we work with mayor and council, they are obviously, you guys know, they're always looking for those kind of things. So that is a very cost effective thing to do going forward. So that's why we often recommend the solutions that can solve your problems. And the other big thing is you can call Brody or myself and say, hey, my refrigeration plant is down, or this HVAC unit. We can log in remotely, take a look at it, and help you problem solve it remotely versus trying to drive a couple hours to your facility to help you out with it. So there's a lot of huge benefits with installing what we're going to be talking about the next few slides, I should say.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And to expand on that, as well as, you know, we also talk to clients about the operational savings. So from the high level of what Ian just said, right? He can log in remote, his team can log in remotely, my team can log in remotely, you know, saving that service call, but also for management and operators, right? If there's an underfloor pump alarm that's sent out at midnight, well, if you get that alarm on your phone, you can say, well, okay, that's an underfloor pump alarm. That's no big deal. I can wait till I get to work tomorrow. Or my whole plant's down, or I have a high slab temp alarm. I need to react to that. So we find that's a big help and value add as well.
Yeah, really what
Yeah.
the council wants to see from everything is the ROI, return on investment, right? What they're putting into it and what you're going to get from year after year on it.
Mhm. Yeah, all those little systems we've been able to add into our rink, giving us communication outside of the building itself, is so valuable. I can't tell you how many times, you know, coming into the rink going, oh, the plant was down. Well, what time did it go down? Oh, 3 a.m. But there was no communication from inside the plant letting us know. Having those tools, it sends it to a phone, goes through an auto dialer system. It's very simple, easy to update with new numbers, you know, different supervisory levels. All those things help and definitely keep costs down, you know.
So the next step is really, that's what it comes down to, a lot of illusion there to it. So, you know, remote access, so logging into your computer from home and seeing alarms and being able to change settings and stuff like that, and then also tracking the trends. I think that's also going to help a lot with where you're seeing these different benefits, and being able to see what happens on a Saturday with your slab, and being able to see what happens with HVAC units at certain times of day and occupancy, and then putting things in place beyond your set points and setbacks, right? So you don't have to just rely on those simple systems. You know, if you want systems to be able to run based on different set points because you're on game day, or you're practicing weekends, or you don't have anything on the ice at all, right? And then you can intertwine all of those systems together. Like we have heat recovery at the Scott Seaman, and we have valves and regulators, and that can kind of allow for other parts of the system to run as more, so you can gain the efficiency as you go along.
Question,
Absolutely,
Adrian,
and-
from Jeff.
sorry.
Did you see that? Just he said ROI is not measured in dollars; it can be measured in connectivity. Jeff, do you want to expand upon that? That's awesome. I love that comment.
Yeah. If you want to unmute yourself, Jeff, go right on ahead.
He might have access to a mic.
Okay.
Oh, there it is.
We'll see. There it is.
There we go. No, it's just being able to connect sometimes is better than you know what the dollars it is to put these systems in. Being able to connect from home, being able to connect from a remote access. You know, it's not, as a manager, you don't get paid that way, but it does your time, your effort, your you know, wherever you are, you can actually answer some of these questions. You can phone in to staff that are on site, which the connectivity is again, it's not measured in dollars, it's just measured in ability to talk to people and let everybody know what's going on or fix the problem remotely.
Saves a drive down to the rink, right?
That's exactly it. Yeah.
I recall driving in northern Alberta and getting a remote or a phone call from my staff saying this happened at the plant. I can't access anything. You know, before we had one of these energy management systems, and so it was. They sent me a photo. I'm looking at a tiny photo on the side of a highway, trying to understand, you know, what's the alarm. Show me the alarm page. A horrible connection. Just a nightmare of a situation to be in, and the stress level alone is like crazy. But Jeff, you hit it right on the head though. Just being able to log in and see that stuff, I can troubleshoot so many things, you know, from home or wherever I am. I just log in and I can see it all. It's so helpful. And just like Adrian said too, that trend data is so valuable these days. You know, we used to, you know, you write it in a book and you'd have piles and piles of legal log books that, you know, have been kept over the years, but there's no way that anybody was trending any of that data. It's all automatic now. You don't even have to think about it. So there's a lot of value in data these days.
Yeah, going back and looking at outdoor air temperatures compared to discharge pressures, compared to glycol temperatures, that was incredibly valuable. And when you're looking at it year after year, it's going to be incredibly beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Adrian, do you mind going back to the past slide there, please, just quickly?
I'll try. There we go.
Yeah, so for, you know, just to expand on this, in addition to these excellent points that are listed here, you know, there's life safety integration, right? You can monitor the plant, you can monitor the refrigerant levels, you can automatically, you know, shut down your HVAC systems from ingesting, you know, a release or a leak, and in the same breath automatically turn on your exhaust systems. You know, there's for you know, next steps, you know, maybe second, third phases, you know, advanced power management, you know, demand response, peak demand, load shedding, power ranking, and you know, Ian will talk about it a little later in the presentation, but you know, heat recovery systems and having that full picture, because you know, we're talking about remote into plants, but also for, you know, heat recovery plants. So it just takes that to the next level. And the other thing I want to share with the group too is, you know, we've all heard the term open systems. You know, yes, there's open protocol out there, but you know, there's also open source, and what open source allows is for you folks, the end users, is, you know, vendor neutral, non-restrictive support. And, you know, it eliminates those proprietary contracts and service as well. So just to note, you know, you always want to look for that open source solution. So you're not, you know, married to said vendor.
So Brody, just to expand on that a little further, if I was purchasing a system today and I went with a system that wasn't open sourced, what would that look like? You know, and maybe I wasn't happy with the service they were providing.
So there are, great question, Craig. There are, you know, ways around that. There are solutions to take the handcuffs off for sure. Because that's a great point. You know, controllers are controllers. It doesn't matter whose stickers on it. It's as long as it's open and non-proprietary. So it's a little bit more of an in-depth discussion, but great point, Craig, is there is options to, again, I say take the handcuffs off. So you're not married to said, you know, vendor or service provider.
Yeah, Craig, and one thing you can always do is Brody said start from the beginning, right? Like if you're not there right now and you're talking about putting in a new system, one thing that Polar always does is write it in our specifications that all contractors bidding on the work need to have an open source control system when they're done. So that means whether it's StarTech, Simco, anyone else, Brody comes in and does a system, for example, they all come in and they need to leave it so that you can control your system. Because that's what it's all about, is giving you access to your system for the future, that you have the power to do what you need to do with it. And that's really what open source gives you.
So what was the restriction that you found, Ian, that you made that decision to only allow contractors who provide open source?
There are some contractors in the ammonia refrigeration industry that will lock down their control system so that they are the only people who can provide service to it and upgrade the graphics, do all those things. And so what that does is, as you alluded to, Craig, when you're best friends with the contractor that installed everything, it doesn't matter. That's fine. It works really well. But we all know that relationships shift over time. There's complicated issues that come up along the way. And so because of that, if ever you said, actually, I think this service contractor, because of changes in management or staff, I think they can serve me better going forward, you now have the option to make that switch. But if you installed it with a locked-in control system day one, as Brody talked about, you can't do that at that point. You need to sometimes rip out the entire control system and put a new one, or I'm sure Brody has some very fancy fixes that he can put in for you to deal with that. But that's the thing we're trying to avoid from day one. So that's what we strive really hard to set up from day one, that you're set up going forward in the future for the next 20 to 30 years. Because these systems cost a lot and we know that. So we need to make sure we do it right day one.
So both of you can kind of speak to this, but I think sensing and getting the information to your controllers, to your computer systems is key. So having the different type I've noted here, there's vast amounts of sense points. And Brody, you know that with our installation, right? That we wanted a lot of information so that we could tell discharge right from the head, right all the way to the condenser, right? We wanted to know that, so.
Absolutely, you know, and again, much like the last slide, these are great points here and starting points, you know, but in addition to, like you said, Adrian, all the sensors, you know, we can talk about rank air quality and gas detection, right? So you're only running, you know, your HVAC system, you know, dehumidifier, pressurization units in the ring space when you have to, right? And to have schedules and setbacks on those dehumidifiers. So all the sensors with you in the automation system, and I think in the next slide it's going to come up as the IT side, but IoT stands for the Internet of Things. I think we've all heard that term by now, but basically there's so many smart devices, smart sensors, and smart equipment that you can, you know, it's easier now more than ever to bring all those together, right? And that leads to full system integration, right? These type of solutions don't have to be done in one bit or in one phase, right? It can be a scalable approach. And that's the biggest thing that we come across with our customers on this call and other customers is, Ian just alluded to it, right? They're expensive systems because of what they provide, but it all doesn't have to be done at once. It's completely scalable.
Yeah, that's exactly the scenario we went through with you guys, Brody, is we broke it down into smaller sizable chunks and we're phasing our project. So we started with, we got a number of our HVAC systems, all our crucial stuff online, and, just a few other things that we liked at the time, and we're phasing all the other stuff. So we don't have to shill out, $1 million worth at one project, which I know with a lot of us, go to council, try and get approval for $1 million, probably not going to be a yes, at least in my experience. So the really phenomenal thing with these systems, though, is the fact that every piece of equipment has a schedule. Before, in my rink, we have an old 30-year-old rink, outdated technology, and no integration for anything to talk to one another. Now my dehumidifier talks to my unit heater. First stage of dehumidification is heat. Well, great. If my heaters can't keep up, then my dehumidifier will kick on. That's an amazing integration that I had never thought of before any of these systems would have had the capability of doing. But that scheduling component, it'll turn everything on when I want it to, and it turns it off when I don't. I never had that before. Everything ran, and it ran when I didn't want it to, because no one wants to go to a thermostat and turning things on and off every day, and it's not going to happen. So having everything interconnected, it all works together. That's a huge piece too. Nothing's fighting each other anymore. And we can schedule it, and you get a ton of savings with just turning stuff off. It's just like your home. Everyone's parents probably told them growing up, close the door, we're not heating the outside. It's the same principle on a huge scale for us in the rink world. So
Put
it
on
all
some
works
socks.
together well.
Were there any other questions, comments for the things that we have talked about so far? I know Craig, Adrian, and Brody, we could talk for hours, but it's about what's good for you guys.
I
Yeah,
think
feel free if
we've
there's any
already kind of
questions.
we've already kind of talked about this IT side, but yeah, trends and histories, like we found that incredibly advantageous, right? To look through and find use graphs and layer graphs on top of graphs and change the time of it all, and just to be able to do that, right, is huge.
Yeah, and I think we all report to IT groups one way or the other, and the thing to touch on here again, like great points, and absolutely, I think from end users to us as automation to Ian's group, that's how and you can graphically or via Excel compare readings and analyze data and analyze the big data. But the other thing too is that these solutions nowadays, folks, we talked about all the remote access, is everything's up to date, like cybersecurity, all that. We work with IT groups across the continent, and that's from high level NHL teams to mom and pop curling rinks, and that's fine, but it is all cyber secure, and really it's not a trick, but the process is obviously the end user, you folks, IT, and your solution provider just need to meet up front and to lay that all out, and then getting things online is relatively smooth.
One thing talking about trends and histories is that often a big thing that Polar does is work with federal and provincial grant organizations to get funds to pay for these projects, because we know they're quite expensive. But often those grant agencies they say proof is in the pudding, and they want us after the fact to come back and say, okay, we gave you $2 million, or we gave you $1 million. Now show us that $1 million went and did something good. And they often ask Polar to come back in after the fact and work with Brody, I should say, to say, okay, now grab your trends in history and show me that you're saving energy versus what you had before. And that's actually a requirement of a lot of these big grants now, is that they can track that and they can prove, because they need to make sure that they're spending their money in a way that affects their end goals, which is often energy reductions for these large grants. So that's another big reason to have these in place, is that then we can go back and look at everything and prove to the grant agencies that yes, we did what we said we were going to do.
Absolutely. Yeah, we see that all the time as well. Well put, Ian.
You know, and
Yeah, I
with
mean, oh,
go ahead, Craig.
I was just going to say, from a municipal standpoint too, everything comes down to taxpayer dollars for us. We're funded by taxpayer dollars. So, you know, I'm not an elected official, but our elected officials are duly appointed to make sure that those dollars are spent wisely. And, you know, these studies and getting these grants and stuff like that is all dependent on making sure that, yeah, the proof is in the pudding. You know, that we're not putting in a system randomly spending $500,000 and then we have no way of tracking if it worked or not. Yeah. So very important. And yeah, everything comes down to the dollar figure at the end of the day.
100%. And, you know, with the IT side, and we talked about open source protocol, it's going to be very interesting in the future whether ice resurfacers are open source and the information that comes from them are open source. Maybe Brodie can start to pull information from that. And I know like our meltwater recycle system is all automated, but it's not open source. And Brodie is going to have a time to go ahead and tap into that if we want to start reading that on Brodie's system, on Guest Automation System. So it's really important that that's the case. And like Brodie said, like we're getting our HVAC systems so that when we do a shelter in place in the event of a major ammonia leak, we won't be sucking in the ammonia through our HVAC system. They're going to be shut down right away, and everything else within the building is going to be shut down. So that's not going to be the case.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was a really neat feature that early on when we were choosing the system was actually one of the reasons we chose it, was because it had that functionality. You know, just the fact that most rinks don't think about that. You know, 5 years, I hadn't even thought about it. You know, you get in a release, where's it going? Outside, great. Well, where's your intake for the building? Well, right next to the vent stack. Well, that's not good. So that was a huge life safety issue for us once we recognized it. You know, you don't know what you don't know. And so when we did, we realized this has got to be part of our system. And I think it's just standard now, but it's awesome. I don't have that worry in the back of my head because, you know, you care and you're required to take care of those people in your facility. And, you know, that's a huge insurance piece right there for me, peace of mind.
Absolutely.
So as we talked about, there's many different sensors and thermostats and way to schedule. And then beyond that, like for our building, we have our regular HVAC units, but then we have fan coil units that take the heat through the wasted heat from the building and the refrigeration plant, and then we can heat the rooms. So we've got a lot of other systems that are coming into play now to really scavenge and make it more efficient all the way around.
Mhm.
And I think in this regard, you know, that's why you want to utilize teams like Ian's and mine, because, you know, and Ian, I don't want to speak for you, but you know, you want to look for, you know, a rink specialized engineer, not just a mechanical engineering outfit. I hope I don't get in trouble for that, not from Ian, but from other partners. But you know that, you know, a team like Polars would actually, you know, perform, you know, the site survey and, you know, the energy audit, and Ian spoke about it earlier, right? The MMV process to, you know, measure but also verify for grants and performance, right? And again, a great list of components here, but you know, back to IoT and integrating everything together is, you know, power, water, gas meters, you know, your emergency systems. It sounds funny, but anything electrical, mechanical, refrigeration can be integrated, controlled, or monitored. An industry partner that just retired, he even had his, you know, handicap door button automated because it was becoming a nuisance because, you know, kids or people walk by and hit it, right? And actually burnt it out. So he wanted that automated so that, and back to, you know, what everyone's talking about here is, you know, scheduling it so that people couldn't play with it during these hours.
They can all be integrated together, from thermal batteries to underfloor, and both heating and cooling thermal batteries. Some of our clients like to do, it's a hot topic, whether they like it or they hate it, to do air conditioning with their ammonia refrigeration plants because they have these big air conditioners in the back of their building. So you can do things like that. You can store heat in your underslab to use that heat later on. So there's lots of different options, and basically the best thing to do is probably just give someone on this line a phone call and say, here's what I have, this is what I'm interested in, and what are my options, and we just kind of start from there.
Yeah. No, it was neat, Ian, with having you come to our rink and share about that air conditioning factor.
Mm.
Our refrigeration plant is a giant air conditioner, and you do a few modifications on it, and you can cool the entire space during, I don't know about you guys, but we had a number of weeks where we had, heat warnings, and so we were opening cooling stations. So really neat that when the ice is not in, what can we do with this piece of equipment that's sizable and can provide some of those resources that we might need in emergencies too.
I'm actually talking about it at the conference, Craig, but to kind of spoil the end message, we just did a study with Fort St. John in northern BC, and we found that if they installed a dedicated air conditioning system, it was going to cost them $1.5 million. Or if they reuse their ammonia refrigeration plant, it was going to cost them $500,000 to do the same thing. And so they said, well, let's spend $500,000 and get the thing. Now, I did said, just to make sure you can't have ice and do this at the same time. And they said, during a heat dome, we're okay with that. We'll just cool one ice. They only had one ice surface at this facility, so that was fine. They said, we're just gonna have people in there, we're gonna cool it. But you can always prioritize things, and that comes down to where Brody would come in. He'd say, okay, we're gonna maintain ice in that facility, but we're gonna throw as much HVAC over here as possible because the plant isn't big enough to do both, but let's do the both the best that we possibly can and take the edge off outside. And so they're doing, you need smart controls to do things like that.
Smart controls, but honestly, that comes down in right in the beginning going, we're thinking outside the box what we can do. And that's pretty awesome to hear.
Yeah.
Jeff mentioned here, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Jeff mentioned here that having an all unoccupied feature on days when the entire facility shut down is pretty valuable for him. I think what he's talking about is he's got a schedule and an option where he can just close down and shut down heaters, air conditioners, things like that. Don't cool it or heat it when I don't have people in the building who want those heat sources. Sure. So it probably maintains it, I would assume, at a lower temperature than you were used to. But yeah, all those things go into that scheduling program, and then they result in cost savings. All adds up.
Absolutely. And, Jeff has, I don't know, I'm going to say 20 schedules, in his facility, and it's from great feedback, like you industry experts that, yeah, because I'll be honest, it was a customer, years ago that said, hey, it's troublesome. It's time consuming to change 20 schedules. Can I have one that changes them all? And I think, that's where Jeff's alluding to, right, is he has one master building unoccupied schedule. He sets one schedule. It's the master schedule for all. Boom, his whole building shuts down. Or sets back, excuse me.
Yeah, we're going to copyright it the Jeff unoccupied.
No, 100%. That's what you gotta have those kind of schedules in place, right? Even on the ice, or game day schedules, or weekday schedules, and that kind of stuff. And then special event schedules on top of that, right? So you can change it for just these 3 days, or this week, or this 6 months, or so you don't have to be going in and out of the scheduling pages to change that stuff. So we've already alluded to the idea of moving heat. All of our plants, pretty much, there's heat going out the back of the building all the time. Depends on how big the plant is and how much heat there is. And that's where Ian's specialty is kind of, right? And this is something neat. We don't have a pool at our facility, so we're not trying to heat an entire, however many meters cubed of water, but it's incredible to see what they're doing now. Go ahead there, Ian.
This is kind of more to talk about what Craig just talked about, just thinking outside of the box. And most of our facilities, and there's a slide that shows, I know we're creeping up on time, so I'll be quick. Most of our clients say, okay, if I have an ice arena, I can probably heat that ice arena. But we say, think about it this way. If you have a single ice sheet, you can provide all the heat, probably all the heat, if not the majority of it, for your single ice sheet facilities. That's your lobby, your change rooms, your domestic hot water, all that stuff. But if you have a double ice rink, you can probably heat the majority of your ice rink and a pool that's adjacent. And then people often ask me, well, I have a pool, but it's a couple hundred meters or a couple hundred feet over there. Is that actually cost effective? I don't know. And so I just like to say, kind of going back to proof is in the pudding. This is a project that that's been running for about a year and a bit now. And we actually trenched 200 meters across the parking lot, and we're reducing the energy bills for the pool by, I think it was $110,000 a year in energy costs for their facility. And we're providing 90% of the heat for the pool off the heat reclaimed from the double ice surface. So it was an incredible win for the facility. And with grants that we were able to get, it had to end up having a payback of 3 years for the municipality. So so it was a great win. So I just wanted to show some photos of what it kind of looks like and how they integrate together. And from Brody's side, we actually had to run a fiber optic line in parallel with my heating pipes. So to get across to communicate between the two facilities. So now they're connected together. So there's some communication between the two. But just some photos of say, like, it is possible, and there are municipalities taking this on and winning quite a bit from doing it.
Yeah, and when it comes to heat recovery, we've been heating spaces. We heat our snowmelt pit, and we get preheat on our domestic hot water or Zamboni water. And then beyond that, we're talking about doing cogen, which is 24 kilowatt cogen units to also preheat the domestic hot water and generate some electricity. So with 3 of those units, we could generate almost 150 kilowatts of power, which is pretty much where we need to be to power the whole facility.
That's awesome.
Amazing.
So we talked about heat recovery. There's different ways of doing it, but probably the biggest one is glycol and heat batteries to be able to send it around. One of the neat ideas I've heard of is doing in-floor radiant heating under the dressing room. So you don't even have an HVAC unit running. Heat always rises up, so you're kind of generating your heat from the lowest point. So.
Yeah, and these are often the questions that a lot of our clients give us is what new tech is available, how to make it more cost effective. We're happy to talk about this in more detail, and I'll pass it over to Brody. But the big thing that we talk about, you see that photo on the right-hand side there? Well, that's a condenser at the back of the facility running in the middle of winter. And that big cloud of steam coming up, I always say I want to shut that steam cloud down because A, you're spending water to pay for that steam cloud. You're running your refrigeration plant to get rid of that heat. Well, I say, well, that amount of heat could actually heat the entire facility. So let's shut that off, pull it back internal, and then use it, and then shut off. Usually what we end up is shutting off the natural gas and reducing that quite a bit for the facility. But we also look at ways to reduce electricity by shutting off the fans for the evaporative condenser, lots of those things too. So we often look at, okay, how can we maximize both electrical and natural gas reductions? I don't know, Brody, you have anything to add to that?
Just that, we talked about it earlier about with your engineering team, your automation team, having that remote access is, continuing to optimize and fine tune that, right? Because just because it was set up, let's say in the fall or the spring, maybe it's not the same level, or maybe it's more heat than you thought was available. So again, that's key, is kind of continuous optimization for, just base building or with a, heat recovery system.
Yeah. And if we jump to the next slide, Adrian, we can kind of talk quickly about how much heat's available. So this is 2 facilities, and I just wanted to kind of talk about pool or an ice arena. So this is 2 facilities we just did analysis on recently, and we needed an automation system like Brody's talking about to get this analysis. But the green bars here are the amount of heat available from the ice plant, and the gray bars, which are often behind the green, are the amount of heat required by the facility. And this just kind of hits home the fact I just want to talk about. You say that the green is normally above the grade for a single ice sheet and a single ice sheet facility and a double ice sheet with a pool. And so I just wanted to show that based on our analysis for this, if we did heat recovery and we pulled all the heat from the ammonia refrigeration plant, we should be able to provide all the heat for the majority of these facilities when the refrigeration plant is running. You'll see one of these facilities shuts down for 2 months of the year, and the other one keeps 1 ice sheet in all year round, and 2 during the winter months. But it's just to kind of show you that it is possible, and I don't think it's very common knowledge about how much heat is actually available in your refrigeration plants. It's very substantial.
Absolutely. And back to trends like Ian alluded to, right? There's a trend to show you that, and this is live real time, right? So you don't have to wait for those power bills to come in. You can monitor this live and pull your own data.
Just like we talk about in arena too, it's cold is the absence of heat. So you're trying to pull that heat from your building through your slab, through your refrigeration system, and then it goes out, right? Just going back to layman's terms of it all. And then now if we could take that heat and keep it in the building, put it in the glycol systems and cycle it around, it's hugely beneficial.
Absolutely.
And
beneficial, but also regulatory too. I could easily see this becoming towards what we might say as a requirement in the future, especially with a ton of the mandate stuff coming down the pipe from government. Yeah.
Like it says right there in the next slide, net zero. We want to go for
Mhm.
net zero, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And these are all excellent points here. And what, from our perspective here is, obviously with a automation control system, it monitors the live, real-time cost of electricity, and constant optimization and adjustment. What we're seeing is exactly what's listed here. Third-party integrations for smart scheduling. So yes, there's static schedules in the building, but what happens if you have a last-minute booking or a last-minute cancellation? Well, by integrating and talking to that schedule software, boom, it'll automatically adjust not just your plant but your building, right? We're working on analytics and automatic fault detection, not just an alarm in your system, but advanced alarming or advanced notification that, hey, this is monitoring your delta T of your chiller is getting closer and closer. That type of analytics, asset management, based on actual live runtimes from the automation system, automatic work orders based on runtimes and usage, all automated. And then we're even doing some pilot projects with a couple customers on this call with automatic ice thickness sensors. So again, we talked a lot about obviously energy savings, but those operational savings are reducing staff time to manually drill, measure, and record, right? It's there at your fingertips, much like the trends we've seen in this slide. You can just pull up that ice thickness sensor trend and see what it is. But again, it's a pilot project at this time.
A pretty neat pilot project. I don't know how much I can share on that, Brody, or what you're comfortable with, but
you go ahead.
Yeah, it was neat because Brody had approached us and he said, I've got this wild idea. We want to be able to tell you how thick your ice is all the time in real time. And I was like, oh, interesting. That's kind of cool. Never really thought about that because every rink has your drill, has your tape measure, has your clipboard. You go around and you drill and do it all. And I thought, it's been that way for 100 years and we've all just done it until somebody, again, thought outside the box and went, what if I could give you a sensor that could tell you how thick the ice is? That's pretty cool. And then I started looking at the math going, if our staff didn't have to do that, we do it twice a week, 2 sheets of ice, starts to add up with how much savings you actually get on just staffing costs alone. And that doesn't mean we get rid of staff. That just means they can spend more time doing more important tasks elsewhere. And it's pretty cool that it's actually working. So that's neat.
I'm envisioning a screen in your Zamboni room, isosurfacer room of the ice with like a temperature gradient looking thing, like with the red and the green and the yellow of, green is where you want to be, 1 inch plus or 1.25 inches. And then yellow is getting to that inch, and then red, you'd see your creases get a little brighter and your center get a little bit brighter. The future is really bright, I think. And like we said earlier, like last 10 years, we've seen incredible bounds with technology and, being able to talk to your isosurfacer. So like I said, automating different things, as long as it's all open source, as long as you can get a controller on it, it's really kind of endless.
Yeah. One of the neat things I had a few weeks ago was another colleague who runs a rink was starting to track how many people enter the facility. And it's a simple little sensor, and it can tell if it's a parent or a kid by how tall they are and stuff. And I was like, this is really intuitive. But he can actually make sure he's not over capacity in his facility. And if they're not in certain areas, it can integrate and tell them to turn lights off, heating. And I was like, man, it is just endless the way stuff can work and communicate together. It's pretty cool.
Wow.
Absolutely, and scalable, and with a big enterprise customer of ours, they wanted one at the front door, a people counter, but also at their restaurant, right? So they can actually truly track people coming and going from their in-house restaurant within the facility, right? Something else I wanted to share with the group that's really cool and back to the future, back to the future is what does the future hold is we've been involved in several projects that, yes, you can quote me on this, oilless magnetic bearing chillers, that have an extremely low maintenance footprint. And I think the important thing is that can be installed and serviced by non-ammonia mechanical teams. So that's pretty neat technology that, again, just to share with the group, because not many of us have heard of an oilless compressor.
That's incredible. So the big thing that comes down to it is how we're going to pay for all of this. How we're going to get councils to approve it. We're talking, some projects are $2 million, $1.5 million, but if we can find different grants that are behind all this stuff that can cover 50, 60, sometimes 80% of the whole project. I'll let you speak to more on this, Ian, because I know you've handled a lot of it.
And a big thing to know is that there's grants, and you guys are well aware of this, seems to change weekly at this point. What's available, what's getting announced both federally and provincially. So I'm sure you're sending the slide deck out. This presentation we put together a little while ago. So some of these grants are open and some of them are closed now. But I always say the best thing to do is just give us a phone call. Every month we go through and normally research both federally and provincially what grants are available for recreation facilities in particular. That's all Polar does. And so we kind of break grants down to two phases internally. One's the planning phase where we say, okay, what do you want and where are you now and where do you want to be and what programs can you use to pay for that? And that costs money to have someone like myself or Brody come in and look at the facility. So then once you go, if you go back a slide, Adrian, there for a second. So these grants pay for the professionals to come in, talk to you, figure out what you want, build a detailed energy model so you know how much heat you have and how much heat you're using and where do you want to use that. Help you build capital budgets so you can go to your local government and say, this is how much money I need and this is what I want to do. But the other big thing these projects do is that often our clients come to us and say, hey, I have to replace a refrigerated slab, or I need to replace my condensers or my chiller, all these things. These are big capital items. But what you can do, if you go to the next slide, Adrian, is you can use energy grants to help pay for that. So you can roll it into one big project. So you can see here, we use the Green Municipal Fund project a lot, and that's up to $5 million. They'll give you 25% will be a loan, but some of our clients have $2 million projects, and they're saying, hey, I'm replacing refrigeration slab, but I'm also doing this energy recovery at the same time. But because of that, they will pay for 25% of the entire project, not just the energy recovery project. And it's all about how you word it. So we need to say, hey, we need to replace this lab to get the energy for the energy recovery project, which is the end of life. So therefore we need to include that. And we also need to upgrade this air handling unit and this air handling unit and replace that compressor because they're all integral parts of the energy recovery project. So we have a lot of experience with how to do that and how to word it to maximize these grants. And then the nice thing is a lot of these federal and provincial grants are actually stackable on top of each other. So the Green Municipal Fund grant, for example, was stackable with the Recreation Energy Conservation Program for up to $750,000. So a lot of our clients say, okay, we're going to get that grant here, we're going to get that grant here, we're going to stack them on top of each other. Well, often you're left paying for 20% of the entire job, which is less than replacing your ice surface. So that's a big thing we do is what grants are available, what grants are stackable, and then you can apply for it and we can help you apply for it and go from there, because we realize that often these projects don't go ahead, and because they're large capital projects, they don't go ahead unless you get some large grants for them, because they're just too expensive otherwise. So we're always happy to talk about that. So I said these grants are what were available earlier, late last year, early this year. So some of them are still open, some are not, but I always say just give us a phone call. Happy to talk about it. Happy to say, tell us about your project, what you want to do, and we can say these are probably the grants that you want to look at.
Yeah, we have a number of aging facilities. We probably have more aging facilities in Alberta than all the facilities in like a Washington sort of thing, you know. Like Craig mentioned, he's got a 30-year facility that you know, not all of us are lucky to have like a 10-year-old facility. So it's this is going to be hugely beneficial. And I think the way that we've seen things going, they're going to come and go. They're gonna always be around. There's gonna be something or other. They might just change the stipulations around them. You know, that's kind of, you know, we're not going away from green energy. We're gonna try and be cost effective as we go along for years and years to come.
Yep, it's all in how you strategize to get these projects done. And this is the way to do it. You know, being able to stack them is an amazing approach. The fact that you can do that will save you, you know, you're left paying, what did you say there, Ian, 20% of the project cost, which is
Our
unheard of.
clients often pay between 40 and like 5% of project costs. So that's what they have to foot the bill for in the end. So
Wow,
Awesome.
amazing.
Well, did anyone that's here have any questions or anything to talk about with their projects or anything that they have going on? You can go ahead and unmute yourself and or put your hand up or anything you like to do, or put them in the chat box. Not seeing 100%, but you can at any time when you want to put your hand as I continue to talk, you can do so. I just put up a contact list of how to find our presenters, myself, Craig Diltz, Brody Guest, Guest Automation, and Ian Well at Polar Engineering. Big thank you to you guys for doing this with me here. I know this was a bit of work for everyone to put forward, and hugely beneficial, I think, for everyone, all of our members, to see what we can kind of expect to see in the future here. And you know, you could reach out to those guys at any time, or any of us at any time, about these topics, or Craig and I about really any arena topic that we have going on. That's you know, kind of, that's what our job is as part of RFP, to be there for the members. And part of being there for the members is our 45th annual conference and trade show coming up in end of April. 21st, 22nd, 23rd, I believe, Craig?
Yep, 24th as well.
24th, yes, that's right there. So there's going to be a lot of great keynote speakers, a lot of great topics, some of the things we've talked about already, and a lot of awesome networking opportunities. There's a lot of you know, activities and things going on, a lot of food, a lot of drink. Yep. It's a really good time. I know I took in my first conference, RFP conference, and it's at a great venue at Lethbridge Sandman Inn, or at Sandman Signature, sorry. And it's a great venue. We checked it out last year, and it's going to be real mind-blowing to see what it's all going on. Lots of education sessions and exhibitors. The trade show alone is worth going to. So, and you'll probably see our friends Brody and Ian there, and you can ask them some more questions as they come along.
Yeah, I do recommend too, if you're maybe new to the industry and you're looking to connect, this is the place to do it. The trade show alone, you're going to rub shoulders with basically all the players in the industry. You can ask them questions, get business cards, exchange ideas. Very valuable. And very popular too. So I do encourage you, maybe if you can't come for the full conference, at least come for the evening of the trade show.
Agreed.
Well, if no one has anything else to add, I'm going to go ahead and say thank you all for coming. And have yourselves a great day, and I hope to talk to you in the near future.
Meet you. Thanks
All
for your
right.
time.
Thanks, everyone.